Hello. This is another incredible client interview with Cherry Nadazi, a successful alumni of the Software Engineering Accelerator. Now, Cherry is a really special student of ours. She actually had 0 internships before the program, very little experience, and through the Software Engineering Accelerator, she was able to land an incredible software engineering internship at LinkedIn that paid over $50 per hour with a $10,000 housing stipend. Incredible result. So here's Cherry Nadazi.
Yep. Hi.
Hello, how's it going?
Good. And you?
Doing well. I'm doing well. Thanks for joining.
Of course.
Awesome. Well, I want to say, first of all, congratulations. That offer is amazing. And I want to throw it to you. Congratulations for that LinkedIn offer. What was
Thank you.
have you accepted it already?
Yes, I have accepted it. Well, yeah, I have.
Awesome. Yeah, it's great to hear. So just tell me a bit about the offer. I'm just curious, like, what was the interview process like? What was the offer? Where is it based? Just tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, sure. So basically my offer, the process was like I got reached out to by a recruiter that I had like messaged previously during the year asking if I was interested in applying for the internship and to let her know when I when I applied. And so she grabbed my application from the pool of applicants and that basically like fast tracked me into getting an OA, which I completed. And then next part would be like a phone screen. And after that, it was a final, which consisted of a 1-hour technical interview and then a 1-hour hiring manager interview.
Awesome. That's great to hear. And what was the final offer? So location, salary, stuff like that.
So the final offer was it's going to be in Mountain View, California. Salary is 55 an hour, and the total compensation. There's also a stipend for housing of $8,000.
So I guess if we go all the way back to when you joined the program, I believe you enrolled in the summer at some point, maybe it was June or July. Could you kind of tell me, Cherry, briefly where you were before you joined the program and what influenced your decision to book that call?
Yeah, sure. I guess for me at that point, I had like started to get a sense that I was behind in terms of like recruiting for interviews. As even though it was the summer, I felt like I had like the previous years, I kind of not, it had been very much out of my mind. And so kind of thinking about it like, oh, I'm not really in a position where I'm confident I can like get an offer for an internship next summer. I don't know where to begin. I don't think my interviewing skills are good enough. I don't think my resume is going to get any recruiter's attention. And so it was kind of like a sense where I was like, one, like these, I know those are things that can be worked on, but working on them by myself would have taken a lot longer than the time I had. Because I know for things like software engineering, recruiting, most of it happens in the fall. And so getting to like the middle of summer, tail end of summer, I was like, it's right around the corner. And I needed to figure out how can I get ready as fast as possible with like the right kind of guidance.
Yeah, that makes sense. And touch briefly on your background here. You're a junior, right? And
Yes, I go to Carnegie Mellon University, so I'm a junior in computer science with minors in HCI and design.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And what was your previous internship history? So did you have any kind of internships before? And if so, what were they?
I had one internship in junior year of high school, but it was a co-op and it was more of a like my school had students had to do co-ops and it was more so like a family friend just said, here, you can like, he worked in tech. So he was like a technical manager for a team. And so he's like, here, you can kind of just shadow the team and see how it's really like. But it was less so of an internship where I actually like had an impact. And it was more so just like a shadowing. And then more recently, I worked as like a software engineer research assistant at one of the labs in my school. Basically what I did is like, I reached out to one PhD student because I thought his project he was working on was an interesting one and I wanted to kind of be part of that. So that's kind of like, and then also I'm a teaching assistant for one of the CS classes at my school.
Yeah, that makes sense. So no major kind of like for engineering internship experience beforehand.
Yeah.
Got it. That makes sense. So let's talk about what influenced your decision to join. Specifically that decision. Did you have any kind of like hesitations before the program and what kind of influenced you to say yes and go ahead and go all in?
Yeah, so I was definitely like hesitant at first because it is a commitment. I think I was trying to understand like, is it worth the cost? Like, is it something, one, is it worth the cost? And is it also something that that I can commit to. And I think the reason I decided to like commit to it was one, like knowing that I didn't have enough time to try and figure it out on my own. Like that was one of the biggest thing is that like recruiting was right around the corner and I needed to kind of like get as much like one of especially the biggest part was getting direct feedback.
Mhm.
Right, because obviously there's YouTube and stuff online about how you can do this, but it's not as easy without like getting that direct feedback of what you're doing. So that's one of the biggest things. Also getting that feedback like fast and being able to kind of drastically improve. And then also just kind of like looking at the return of investment for me is like if I can like use this and get like in the long term instead of just like in the short term, like, oh yeah, this is gonna cost this much, but in the long term, it's gonna pay itself out multiple times fold. Like it's already like paid itself out with this offer. So
Yeah, that's great to hear, and that's definitely how I think of it as well. Like, and that's I think that's honestly why most people join because like when you look at the investment compared to the outcome, which is literally like the sign-on bonus covers like the entire
yeah.
expense or investment for the program. So that's great to hear. Now, going into your experience with the accelerator, again, I think we're just finishing off your
Yeah.
cohort currently, but could you kind of tell me like what did you like about the program? How did you feel about the way the program is set up?
I think for me, what I really liked about the program is that like it wasn't just the coaching calls. Like the fact that there was stuff to do outside of the coaching calls. I think that was also the fact that it's like make sure you do these things before you do a coaching call. Because it definitely helps. So when you're actually in the coaching call, you're being as productive with the time that you have. And also a lot of the things like the resume builder and the like LinkedIn like builder. I think for me, my biggest thing, like I probably never would have been reached out to by a recruiter had I not like worked on my LinkedIn, right? Like making it seem like interesting enough for a recruiter who's going through like students notices mine and like picks it out of all the students available there, right? So I think that's a big thing is like after improving my LinkedIn, I was surprised to like actually start getting like reach outs from recruiters being like, hey, we have this internship. Are you interested in applying? I think that's the biggest one. And then also after like improving my resume, my like rate of getting like responses back increased as well. So I think doing the stuff like outside of just the calls was definitely like I think it was I wouldn't say more important, but it was definitely like very important getting in like your foot in the door, like getting that OA, getting that like interview. And then the coaching calls kind of helped you more with like once you have that interview, how do you make sure you convert that to an offer or the next steps?
Yeah, that's great to hear. Let's talk a bit about your experience with the mock interviews. I know specifically with you, you actually came in with a Microsoft interview. And because of that, we specifically like kind of changed up the program a bit. So we had some more earlier mock interviews. So I wanted to ask, how did you feel about the mock interviews in the program, both coding and behavioral? And did you feel like they prepared you when it came to the interviews you had later on with companies like, I guess, Microsoft, and LinkedIn and maybe some other ones as well?
I think definitely helped me a lot because kind of I think it was kind of a place where it was a good place to fail rather than in the actual interview. I think my first mock interview, I wasn't able to solve the problem. I think the like definitely wasn't able to solve the problem, didn't really make any like tangible progress either. And I think despite like not doing well in the mock interview, I think it was a good indication of like how to like reframe the way I approach mock interviews. Definitely with technical ones and with the behavioral, I think it also helped to kind of one try and think on the spot. Like, okay, they're asking about this question. How do I respond in a way that relates to the company and do it on the spot in a like concise way and make sure I'm giving like all the key information. So I think the interviews definitely helped being in my mind. I saw them as a place to fail there. So I would kind of like stumble and fail in the mock interview. So when I get to an actual interview, I know what mistakes to avoid, what things not to do, and what things to do.
Awesome. Yeah, that makes sense. Now you mentioned briefly before joining the program, you felt a bit behind. Like you weren't sure if you were going to be able to like do this all on your own, like accelerate, get like I guess like learn all this stuff when it comes to resume, LinkedIn, coding interviews, behavioral interviews to actually get that offer. So kind of like going into the program ending, and obviously you got your offer. How do you feel about everything? Like, do you feel like you have a strong command over the software engineering process?
I do think I definitely do think so. I think especially with like how structured it is, I know how to now like for next season how to approach preparing for the season. I know like, okay, I need to prepare like these lead code questions. I need to do this with my LinkedIn, this with my resume. And then also, especially when I do get like an interview like offer, how do I like prepare for that interview? Like talking to past interns or people in that position about their experience at the company, so I can get more in preparation for the behavioral, so I can have a bit more insight. Just like learning all of this stuff isn't just like a one and done. It's stuff that I know for a fact I'll use later on in the next recruiting cycle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great to hear, and totally agree with that. This stuff is not, it's not just for this time. It's like next internship, next year. It's like all generic, right? Like it's not like,
Yeah.
there are some small differences when it comes to like the specific stage you're in, but I'm sure you will use like all of this information going forward, like beyond next summer and in the future as well. So I guess one of my last questions here, Cherry, is what would you say to your former self 3 or 4 months ago who was interested in joining the program but on the fence? Maybe like they learned about it and they're, on the fence and they have the same goals as you. So like they're interested in getting an amazing offer like LinkedIn. What would they say? What would you say to someone like that if you were giving?
I would say for one is that you kind of get as much as you put in. I think for that, it's like you can't like do things half-hearted, especially with like LinkedIn and resume. I think for me, like initially I was like, oh, I can just kind of like throw things together and it'll be fine. But I think it's surprising how often like interview recruiters will like, especially in technical interviews as well, they'll just pull up your resume and like have it there. And so you want to have it such in a way where they can understand what's on there and they can like pick out specific points to ask you about, right? And so I think for me, the one advice I'd say, like try like you get out what you put in to it. So like doing all the tasks, like doing the homework, like doing the like was it the resume stuff, like fixing, like spending the time to fix my resume. I think that was like the biggest thing is like if you don't have a good resume, you could be the best interviewer and you would not like that doesn't matter if you can't get past the screens. If you can't have a recruiter look at your resume and say like this is a good candidate.
Awesome. Yeah, that makes sense. Final question here. Would you say that looking back over the past couple months, was the program worth it? And would you recommend that other people who have similar goals to you join the program if they have a similar goal and are in a similar position as you?
I think so. I think especially like I think the biggest part of that, like I find is most beneficial about this program is like the guidance for it. Is like even if you have like you just asking for advice from like the community and you as well. It's just I think that's already like very valuable. Getting like the direct feedback is something that you just won't get on your own. There's only so much you can like learn from like looking at stuff online. And it's harder to compare what you have to that versus like if you have someone that you can directly ask about like, hey, I want to do this with my resume, or does this look good on my LinkedIn, right? Or even just with mock interviews as well. I think that was something that's also very helpful is just being able to like do a mock interview and for both behavioral and technical and have that feedback.
Awesome. That makes sense and totally agree with you there. It's great to hear. Well, thank you for doing the client interview. Obviously, congratulations again. That's for your first internship too.
Yeah.
That's an amazing offer. And I want to say congratulations. Best of luck there. I'm like looking forward to seeing what you do. And shoot me a message if you like get any other offers. I know we've done client interviews in the past, and then someone has come back to me a month later with another offers.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I do have a few more like finals. I literally just did a final today for Nextdoor, and I'm waiting back for Netflix as well as Netflix. Wow. I made it past round 2, and so I'm currently in the like hiring manager matching round.
That's amazing.
And then I have 2 more finals next week, so definitely I think this was significantly more than I expected. I think like this like program has definitely like paid itself out. Like just the advice that I got from this has definitely like helped me, especially with like technical interviews. I think like initially I used to be like scared of technical interviews, right? But now I'm like, okay, this is how I approach them. Even if I get a problem I don't know how to solve initially, I've been able to like develop like through like the mock interviews a way to approach new problems and solve them like within the time limit.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's what I love to hear. I think like a big value of those mock interviews is like you can never be 100% certain no matter what the interview is, but
Yeah.
have like a protocol, a system for approaching them. You've done it 4 or 5 times already. You've done it multiple times on your own as well. So you know what to do. So that's great to hear. And again, like so excited for you. You have like Netflix, Nextdoor, all companies. So yeah, shoot me a message if you get any other offers. And of course, stay in touch with the community.
I will. Yeah.
So you're in the program for the next year. So like you can always message with any wins or any questions.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Awesome. All right.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Best of luck, and I'll talk to you later. Have a good one.
Yes. Bye.